Welcome to the panel discussion, Youth Speak on Community Violence, Hear Our Voices. Hear Our Voices. I'm Jamala Roger and I'm your facilitator for today. I'm standing in for Vay Kuaria, who we hope will be feeling better soon. The Youth Council for Positive Development started organizing this panel in the aftermath of the school shooting at Central Visual and Performing Arts. Our condolences go out to the families of the victims of October 24th, Alexandria Bell, only 15 years old, teacher Jean Kuska, and Orlando Harris, the shooter. For thousands more, the tragic event will always be a benchmark. What is a benchmark? It is the reference point with which all other things will be compared to. So for these young lives, we can make that a continuing trauma of trigger, or we can turn it into something proactive. The key to understand how best to proceed is by first, in the African tradition, is ask how are the children doing? What do they need? So we're going to hear from 3 young panelists today with the hope that many similar conversations are going on across the city in the true spirit of community healing. We are very interested in what they have to say today. But before we get introduced to the motivating students, I want to give a virtual hug out to Dr. Casey Seals Shaheed. She's the principal at Central Vision and Performing Arts. But before she was Dr. Shaheed, she was little Casey running around the Rowan Community Center right here in this space and participating in the Saturday Mayat Youth Program. That's what our first panelist has in common with Dr. Shaheed. Ayanna Kelly is a member of the Saturday Mayat Youth Program and has been that for a while. She's done many different activities with the organization. She is a senior at Metro High School and a poet. Next we have Raekwon Strickland, and we'll just call him Ray for today. He is a student leader at VAP, and he is also the student representative to the St. Louis Board of Education. Next we have Myasia Merriweather. She's with the class of 2025. She's a sophomore. She is a student organizer. And, you know, these are young people at VAP that help to really bring some clarity and some cohesion to what was happening in the aftermath of that shooting. So we're going to start first with some opening statements for them, and then we'll concentrate the first few questions on the student community, the school community, and then we're going to go to the broader community. So we'll start with Myasia first. So she's going to open up about what she hopes to get out of this today, how she feels like violence in general impacts her, her family, her peers, and the rest of the community.
How you guys doing? We need clarity. We do have a lot of questions still. Just because it's in the past does not mean that we moved on from everything, because whenever we wake up, sometimes we still picturing the stuff that happened. Whenever we hear loud booms, bangs, we see somebody that we don't know walking past, we still get terrified. I'm aware that we're supposed to be returning back to school in 23, but I feel like there should be restrictions as to pairs going to the bathroom until we get comfortable being in a building again, because we're not gonna just click back to the normal. It's not gonna be normal anymore, although there should be more safety, which I'm hoping is in place. Especially for the students that witnessed Alex on the ground, that witnessed Ms. Jean Kushka. We're gonna be terrified walking through those hallways, entering those classrooms again. We're not gonna be comfortable in the space. We need more provided resources. We know that you guys have lended out counselors and everything over the city, but being that this went on And like I said, when we don't know people, we still get jump scares. We not gonna just open up to these people because we don't know them. It's gonna be hard for us to push through, but there has been many of my friends that reached out to me over the past few weeks from school. We're confused. We're lost. We don't know what to do. We don't know if we want to return back to this building. We don't know if we want to go to a different environment. The question is, if we go to a different environment, do we have to worry about the same thing? How do we know that we're safe in this environment when we return back? How do we protect ourselves, if anything? Because just like this young man took precaution into his own hands to come in that building and do what he did, we're not going to feel safe. We are going to try to bring, not saying that it's okay to do so, but there are going to be students that feel like they have to bring weapons to school to protect themselves, in which we shouldn't have to do that because our security should be able to do that to protect us. It's not going to be easy. But I do feel as though that you don't have to be scared to let it out. You don't have to be scared to express it because we are here. We are here as a community. We are here as close friends. We here. Be the voice. You don't have to be scared to stand out. You don't have to be scared. Be strong.
Okay, Ray, what do you want us to do today, and what do you want us to remember about a discussion like this?
I believe that she hit a lot of different targets, and one of the main things is impact. As a community, it's very important that I still believe that it takes a village to raise one. From my family, they covered me in prayer. They covered me in love. I'm a senior this year. No year in high school for me has been normal. From the pandemic to the shutdown, to not being in school, to virtual, to now what happened on October 24th. It's not easy, especially as an African-American male. I can definitely say sometimes we need love, sometimes we need help. And I hope today, after hearing all of the young voices, families will seek out resources. Of course, they're an ultimate source, but if you seek out the resources that we have through therapy, through counseling, a lot of times it takes an outsider who is unbiased, who has done the research, who has gotten the licensing, who has gotten the studying, all of those different things for us to process our pain. And a lot of times we can't process it on our own because so many times in the black community we were taught what goes on in this house stays in this house. We were taught to deal with our pain. We were taught, shut up before I give you something to cry about, all of these different things. And because of that, it has become in the system, in a cycle, in the families. But today I hope that after hearing these voices, we will start breaking those curses and breaking those spells and becoming the new legacy to move forward in healing and in unity.
Thank you for that. Ayana.
I hope from today that we really reflect on what has happened and what has been said, because without reflection, there's no progression. So you can't improve upon anything if you really don't reflect on what's been said or done.
I totally agree, and I'm glad that you mentioned in your remarks, opening remarks, Ray, about resources and getting help, because when we saw some of the media interviews with you, you were very clear about what was happening to you and that you were encouraging others to get that kind of help. And what was so remarkable about that, first of all, is a young person saying that, but then an African American male saying it. And as you said, you've been taught to like suck it up, man up, all of that stuff. And so that was so refreshing to hear you say that to your peers. Can you talk a little bit about where that came from and what the impact of hearing it from somebody like you had on your peers?
Well, one, I have my therapist appointment on Wednesday, and I am excited about that. For me, well, one, honestly, transparent moment. I have been going through a lot these past few months, honestly, in 2022 in general, in the totality of the year, I have been going through a lot, and my mother and my family, they've been worried about me and wanting me to seek counseling or therapy because I've been a reserved person most of my life. From the absence of my father, then my mother being a single mother, one, I've dealt with a lot on my own. Still having, a family that loves me, but a lot of times you can be surrounded by love and not feeling loved. Because one, you have to love yourself first. And there were many times when I didn't love myself, and I can be honest about that. But then when you find your purpose and you find your passion, you get happier over time. And for me, after October 24th happened, and I realized how much of a heavy load was on my shoulders from personal things that had happened to me and my family. And then to be able to step up in this time, as I said, finding your passion, to be able to recognize when you need help. You can hear it all day long, but it's not until you want it yourself that you can actually get the help that you deserve, get the help that you need, get the help that you are requiring as well. With therapy, I was on the phone with a therapist, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Rochelle Johnson, and the moment that I called her because I did an event for the school, it was so soothing to hear her voice. And then it was a quick little session that she turned on me, started asking me questions. You know how therapists do it without trying, And she did it, and I felt a relief. And then I met her in person, and I felt that energy, the love, the pureness in that. So when I know that there are actually people out there to help, I'm not selfish. I don't just keep that type of thing to myself when I know there are other students out there, there are other children, other families out there who need help as well. As my Asia was saying, there are some people who will be traumatized for life. The honest truth. There are some people who will hear certain noises that will remind them of the gunfire. There are some people who will see certain people and remind them of the gunmen. There are some people who will see certain colors and remind them of the blood that was shed on the ground. So when you see all of those traumatic things, you want to stop it while you can. When you're young is the best time to do it, because it's harder when you're 40 and when you're 50 and when you're 60, because then you're living off of something that happened to you 30 and 40 years back when you can get that help now. So that's why I'm pushing out, get that resource. They're not the source. The source is within yourself and whomever you believe in as your creator. But get out to your resources. So yeah.
So I think that's very profound and insightful, because I think for a lot of folks, and I'm saying older people, when they look at students and young people, they think you don't have a care in the world. But there's lots of things going on in your lives, lots of things at home, things going in the community, even things happening at school. And so to be able to process all of that in real time and then have a traumatic event like October 24th happen really is a bit much. And so I'm going to ask Myasia and Ayana to talk about what that impact of that day had on you. And I know you were at the school, Ayana was at Metro, but all the schools got locked down. And so I want you all to talk about what you thought was happening, how you've managed since then, and if you felt like you needed some extra resources, as Ray had indicated.
Well, to start from the beginning of everything, it was a bit of a shock, honestly. Intruder drills are normal, but when we do intruder drills, we're not expecting it to happen in reality. We did not go to school that day expecting we finna lose our life. We was not thinking that. It was a shock in the moment because the way that it came across. Normally we get notified that we're gonna have an intruder drill. We were not notified. It was random and it scared me because whenever it came over the intercom, the teacher was scared as well, and she was like, so yes, that terrified us. Although it was a shock, I feel like anybody's reaction to gunfire is going to be, what do I do? What's my next move? Who I go to? You know, if the noises were prevented, like from all the shock, I feel like everything could have been prevented. It was scary. I'm a protective person, so I did in a moment feel like I had to protect everyone who was around me. If I did not make a few of the moves that I did make, I probably wouldn't be here today. But I am, though, grateful that I am and that the people that my other classmates are safe. I do send my condolences out to Jean Kushka. That broke me, honestly.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's okay.
It's all right.
Well, it's not okay, but we feel you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you want us to come back to you and you can finish up? I'm gonna go to Ayana.
Yeah, boo.
So what was happening over at your school when you all got the lockdown notice?
So although it didn't directly affect my school, there was a sense of
It's all right, though.
unknown all around. There was a major lack of information, and people were worried because they weren't really aware of what was going on. And I think that many adults and many people of higher ranking think it's better when students don't know all of the details because it may scare them, but I think it's actually worse because a bunch of thoughts are running through your mind like, oh, what's happening? And I don't know, it makes it way more of a scary feeling when you don't know what's going on. And my school was sent on lockdown as well, but the lack of information was really a downfall. Like, if we had more information, I think it would have put our minds at ease a little more because a lot of rumors started circulating because no one really knew what was happening. So I think more information, more awareness would really help overall.
So I'm going to do a follow-up question for all of you all because I think there were obviously some teachers who took better advantage of the situation and really tried to process the situation for folks and others. We were hearing that, just put your head on the desk. Well, young people were there in lockdown for quite a while, and so some of us felt like that was a missed opportunity. What exactly, you talked about what was not happening, but what was happening? What were teachers explaining to you? What were the principal explaining to you? And then I'm going to come to you, Ray, and ask the same question.
So, again, not much what was explained to us. I think that the teachers didn't really get that much information either. Our principal didn't give us that much information. They tried to console us how they could, but there wasn't really much to be done because we weren't really sure what was happening. And they didn't know how to go about it. By they, I mean the teachers didn't know how to go about it as well because they were underinformed.
And so when you know, we all take trauma in different ways, and we respond and react. And the conversation you and I had before this started, you talked about there were some students who were all reacting, and I was wondering what kind of comfort were given them. Was there any effort to bring in, you know, folks who could, counselors who could help those kids? Were they taken to another place where they could get some one-on-one? What was happening to the folks who couldn't sit quietly and process that, but like were crying or screaming or in my opinion, acting normal to this kind of circumstance?
So our counselors did offer a place to talk about our feelings and process our emotions, but that's about it as for resources. And I really think that's an issue, and there definitely needs to be more resources for people to cope with traumatic events like this, because it shouldn't be something that happens and there's no way to process this information. It can be a lot on a person, so I think that it's really important to talk it out, reflect, and that's a major part of preventing or attempting to prevent further things like this.
Ray, what was going on in your school when folks were freaking out? Because that was the site, and so we saw in the news, like, you know, folks jumping out of windows. So I'm just, a lot of stuff was happening in real time, and it was hard to process. But the folks who ended up on trying to get out of that school, what was going on in terms of orderliness, getting folks out in a way that was safe, and people feeling like something's happening, but I'm trusting the folks who are in charge here, that they know what they're doing?
There were a few things going on. I know for me, in my classroom, I was the only male in the classroom. The rules are to get up from your seat and you go to the furthest corner in the room away from the door. I didn't follow the rules. I sat in my desk, because I was closely in the corner already, but I sat in my desk, and all of the females surrounded the corner where I was at, and my teacher, who I am very grateful for, she was, in the soothing voice she spoke, you can tell that she was afraid, but she kept saying, we are in the safest spot in the building. Her classroom was next to a door that leads outside. So if all else fails, you get out and you run. She said the police officers are here. And during that moment, I was writing, and I just kept writing. As I said, I had been through a lot. So to be at peace with whatever was going on was in my mind. I could hear the gunman, as he said, let me in, you know. I could hear the banging. I could hear the gunshots. I could hear students jumping out of the window. I could hear a student scream out as they jumped out the window. He shot my teacher. All of these different things. And you don't know what to do in a moment like this, because as my agent said, you don't go to school expecting that it may be the last time you go to school. You don't expect that it may be the last time you have your life. You don't expect that you'll be running out of the building with your hands up for rescue. We waited, and it's possible, I believe, she was in the classroom with Mrs. Kushka. It's possible that her class, they jumped out of the window. And the rest of us, we had to wait till the officers came to our door and they told us to come out with our hands up. And there's something about that, coming out with your hands up. If you don't know, I am a licensed minister now, so I catch a sermon every now and then when I'm just speaking. And we came out with our hands up, and when we came out with our hands up, we came out with our life, and we came out with victory. Because the goal of the gunman was for us to be defeated. The goal of the gunman was for every single one of us to lose our life. But to come out with our hands up and to come out victorious, yes, it hurts. We lost some people. We lost people that we loved. We lost Mrs. Kushka, who we loved very much, who was a teacher for all of the students, not biased, not prejudiced, but she was a loving teacher. We lost Alexandria, who was sweet-hearted and who was kind and soft-toned. And today we'll be celebrating her heavenly 16th birthday. So yes, but we still came out with victory, and we're still grateful to still be here. So yes, a lot was going on. A lot was going through people's minds, but when you think of it now, it makes you even more grateful for life. So yeah.
So Maisha, I'm thinking about the drill that you said you all did, and I know that was a question from the broader community when they saw people jumping out of windows. Was that part of the drill? I don't think so. So I'm just wondering, when you say you went through the drills, but nobody still expects that to really happen. It's like a fire drill.
Right.
Okay, you're getting the practice, but you're not going to ever have to run from a fire in the building. So what was the thinking about people who almost in panic mode decide, I'm saving myself, I got to get out of here? And what that means when you're trying to get everybody to be orderly and to be safe, and folks are just in panic mode. What does that feel like?
Well, like I said, I'm very protective, especially when there's people in my space. I feel like I have to protect you before myself. So the boy Anthony, he opened the window for everybody, and he was like, come on, get out. We were the last two still in the room, and I was like, come on, Anthony, you gotta get that last. Come on, you gotta go. There were students that was in shock, like really stuck, and just, Miss Kushka. And we had to get them out the window, like, y'all gotta come on, because ain't no telling if he gonna come back, what his next move is, the next classroom that he gonna hit. It's no telling. We don't know what's going on in his head. So the panics were scary because, like, you don't know, like you said, we all take trauma differently. You don't know if those students would have wigged out if somebody touched them. You don't know if they would have passed out. Nothing. Like, you just don't know. So none of it was expected, but we did get out of the classroom safely. I believe I was the last one to jump out of the window. Anthony did not take the window. They said that he walked out of the classroom and he got shot in his leg on his way out of the building. It was scary. It hurt me really bad because over the weekend, I reached out to Miss Kushka and I was telling her how I felt. It was like, as Raekwon spoke, that I was going through a lot. Although that I have a village behind me and I have people that check up on me on a daily, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna be vocal about what I have going on. But I reached out to her because that's what I felt comfortable doing. And she said, Maisha, we can speak about it tomorrow morning whenever you come to my class. And I got a couple resources for you, so Ms. Wolfgram will be reaching out to you during the third period. So whenever I got to the classroom, everybody was waiting on her because that's when she takes her bathroom break right before her third period gets to her class. So we were waiting on her, and whenever she came, she was like, okay, guys, come in. And she was like, Maisha, wait. I was like, okay. Then I put my bag in the classroom on the side of the door, and she was like, can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, yeah. And she was like, Maisha, you're not alone, and I got resources for you. And if you need anything, I'm here for you. I was like, thank you. She was like, can I hug you? And I was like, yeah. So we hugged for about a good 2 minutes. Then everybody got in the class, and she closed the door. We got the do now done and everything. And I asked her for a ruler Cause it normally she have them out on the back table, and she was like, they not in the back, and I was like, no. She was like, it's okay, I'll get it out the closet in a second. She was passing out papers, and next thing we knew, we heard the announcement over the intercom, Miles Davis is in the building. It was unexpected, it was scary. Many people didn't take it seriously because it was unexpected. It's not comfortable for me because I feel as though every time I start to get close with someone, I don't have them no more. That hurt the most because I actually did, like, I was one of the people that got her last words. Like, you know.
So Maisha, you talk a little bit about the role of teachers in our lives, and you know, there's some of us in this room that, you know, for us that was a profession that we chose because of our love for children and young people and wanting to be a part of their lives. I could just tell by all of the students who knew Ms. Kusha how they felt about her, and I think sometimes because young people are at school like 6, 7, 8 hours a day, that's the environment that they relate to. And I've had really the opportunity to talk to parents about, don't think that anything's replacing you, because sometimes there's a teacher that you confided in, and then a mom or dad or a grandma said, well, you never told me that.
Right.
It's a different kind of relationship. And so that's why we have to make sure that school setting, that school community is safe and nurturing, because that's where you're spending the majority of your day. So in the days following that, like the next day, did you go to school and the next day, or you just said, I got to get myself together?
Well, we were not able to return to the school. My friends, I have a few friends that went to the school that were connected to ours, collegiate. My close friend, she said that she witnessed Alex on the ground, and she said that she stopped and prayed over her, and the teachers kept trying to pull her away, but she wasn't moving because she was just praying. And I was like, she gonna be okay. She is gonna be okay. We got to her sister's house because I went home and everything to see my mom, and I felt like I needed to be with a school community.
With the folks who had just been through that with you, yes.
We got in front of her sister's house, and she was like, Maisha. She was like, Maisha, this the girl that died. Everything in my heart fell apart. She didn't deserve that at all. Alex did no wrong to nobody. Even when people tried to bring her down, she walked away. She had nothing to say, or she just stood there and looked at you because it just wasn't in her. Like Raekwon said, she was a very soft-spoken person. She never got loud with anyone. A lot of the things that she did was peaceful. She didn't cause problems with anyone.
So I think you're really trying to remember her spirit, and hopefully that helps you get through some of those tough times. So one of the things that Raekwon talked about was COVID, that his school experience had not been normal the whole 4 years, and I thought, well, yeah, because COVID was a heavy blanket on all of us. And the whole notion of remote learning, the whole notion of being isolated from your friend, the teachers that you love and admire, and then this happens. Right. So I really just want you all to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID on you as a student, because really it almost was two full years that happened. And so I think teachers did what they could to feel like a community, but it's only so much you could do on Zoom, okay? Right. It's only so much hugging you could do on Zoom. So I just wonder, how do you think being in that kind of isolation had a different kind of effect on you going into October 24th? Do you think if you had been part of a normal school environment, you would have been able to embrace it more or deal with it better, or no matter what kind of preparation you would have had, there was nothing that could have prepared you for that?
Nothing could prepare us. School, when we go to school, we feel safe. As you guys see, there has been a lot of sleeping pages from our school, which tells you that we feel comfortable in these spaces. I know me personally, I'm not going to sleep around nobody that I don't trust. So to be able to feel comfortable sleeping in those spaces tells you that was our comfort. That's where we feel safe with all of our arts and being able to express ourselves. Well, I feel like whenever we return, those arts are going to be our expressions more than what they were before. Nothing. I don't think that anyone could be prepared for anything like this. I had a lot of friends from different schools that called and was like, "Maisha, are you okay?" And I wasn't responding. It's not that I didn't care that they was reaching out. It's a lot to take in. Being steady, constantly getting messages, constantly being asked the same things. A few days after I started a new job to take my head off of these things, it helps. It really helps. It's frustrating though, because a lot of the people that come in are always talking about it. It's like, I know I don't look older than these people that's here. I'm the youngest one that worked there, and I'm not gonna say that they should know that I go to the school or anything, but talk about it in your own time. One day it did trigger me really bad. We had a party and the lady was talking about it, and I was like, the table was right by my booth, so it triggered me really bad. She was like, how could the school shooting have been prevented, or what did the guy even look like? And then she was like, he lived 2 blocks away from me. And I'm like I really stood there and just looked at her, because like, you seriously? And she was loud. She was really loud. So I'm like, she's serious. She is so serious. Okay, we know where this man live at, but what can we do? Another thing about that, I feel like lots of people feel like we should let it go because he not here no more. No, we need that justice. We're gonna get that justice for the people that we lost. We lost him too, but I feel like this should have been investigated last year, because last year we had lots of threats of people saying that they were going to shoot up our school. We took it seriously, and it was talked about. Our administrators talked about it, and we were sat down in the auditorium about it and everything, but I don't feel as though it was taken seriously. We did have another threat at the beginning of the school year this year, but it was only one time. So I feel like it wasn't as much as an eye-opener as it was when it happened. It's scary, because what if this was the eye-opener? What if something else is planned to happen to another school? That scares me as well, because I have good grades in school, so I'm not scared about my education or how I'm going to be challenged with it. I'm scared because what if I go to a different environment and the same thing happens? Or what if I'm further and none of my family can get to me? What if we're, like, in our school, it's very hard to get good connection. So what if I was in a space in that building where I couldn't connect to nobody and I was just stuck? 2 of my friends were actually stuck in a hallway, and the procedure for this drill, you don't open a door for no one. They were banging on the doors for their lives. They had to run around those hallways figuring out where they was gonna hide at. What if they didn't make it out? And then there's Raekwon touch bases on walking out with your hands up. Why? y'all didn't make this man. And then the students are saying that there was another man. I cannot speak for that, but if these students is saying that, why aren't y'all looking into it? They not finna lie to y'all about somebody that done almost took their life. It's serious, and I feel like we're not being heard 100% and as we should be. When we approach adults about it, it's not to come off as like, you should have did this, you should have did that, because it's not that. It's just, we're going to be heard. We're not going to give up on being heard because you feel like it's over with. It's not. It's the past, but it's not the past to us because we experienced it. We were in the moment. We felt it. We heard the vibrations. We witnessed these people on the ground. We jumped out of windows. Really, what's our next step?
And we're going to get to that in a minute, because I think what we really need to do, and you all are doing an excellent job of doing this, and that's painting the picture for the broader community, particularly adults. Because our role and responsibility is to create safe environments for you all, whether it be at home, at your workplace, in the broader community. So what you're telling us are the gaps that we need to be mindful of. And I'm going to go to Raekwon, because I remember this whole notion about needing resources, and it sounded like even before this happened, you all were seeking out things. And so what is life like for a young person now that you don't feel like you are as connected as you need to be, you aren't as acknowledged as you need to be, you're not as affirmed? Is it because folks are just busy, or it just, what do you think is the issue? And I'm going to follow up with you, Ayana, as well. So what's going on? We know COVID. I think COVID just made people meaner. I mean, I've seen some mean folks after COVID. That's why I know it has had an effect on us that we don't even realize. But for you all, before this happened, there were things going on that were flags that said, stop, let's take care of this before it escalates. What do you say about that?
Honestly, I'm in the best position in my life that I've ever been before. A lot of times I realize now that it was a season. Things happen in seasons. The worst happens when elevation is coming. Children, students, young people, young African American people need opportunities. We need exposure to the right things instead of what we're used to. What do I do if I am 17 and every single cousin of mine, every single uncle of mine is a drug dealer? What do I do if I'm 17 and my mother is in and out of the whorehouse? What do I do if I'm African American and I'm 17 and all I know how to do is sell this gun for this price? So now I'm caught up in this cycle and I have no resource to get me out of it. But then what do I do if I'm 17 and I'm African American male and I see certain cousins, not all of my cousins, but I see certain cousins into the drug dealing business. But my mother decides you're going to go to church. What do I do if I'm an African American male and I'm 17 and I see people my age dying every single day in St. Louis? But my grandmother texts me, I'm thinking about you, loves and kisses. If it's slight things like that line up to greatness. It's slight things when just an opportunity to be loved, just an opportunity to get help, just an opportunity to have a light in a dark situation that helps young people. Young people have to know that there is more to life than what they see now. People are thinking to live in the right now. A lot of people live by the YOLO. You only live once. I was taught at a young age, no, there's life after life. It depends on what you do now to where you are One, in this life, it depends on what you do now to where you get 30 years from now. But if you only look at the now, you'll only be in the now. Then after now, there is no later for you. But if young people can see there is greatness. St. Louis is small. It's big, but it's small. There's more than St. Louis than St. Louis. You have me, my goal is Atlanta, Morehouse. That's my goal. And I'm working on it. God has truly blessed me to be able to meet some connections to where I have to get, where I want to get. So that's why I emphasize so much, let your light shine. Let it shine. You don't have to be the same like everyone else. You don't have to repeat the cycle. When does it stop? When does the cycle stop? When do you decide in your life, I want more for me? Because the truth is, it's either jail or the graveyard. That's the truth. When you want to repeat the cycle, you either end up in the cell or you end up in the graveyard. And recently, like no other time before in my life, have I ever seen so many African American children in St. Louis dying every single day. Every single day. I'm so tired of seeing rest in peace, rest in heaven, sleep on, how could you leave me, how could you, what happened, soldier, all of these different things. It's because they don't have the support. Mental illness is real as well. We have to seek out help for mental illness. Parents can do so much for their child, but if the child doesn't feel that the parents are doing what they should be doing, it goes void. Parents have to realize there is a deeper spiritual connection in the spiritual warfare. I preach tomorrow, so that's what I'm going to be speaking on, the spiritual warfare. And a lot of times people don't realize that we're only in the beginning, because a lot of times things are only going to get worse before everything gets ultimately better. It's been signs in Revelation that these type of things has to happen, you know, and children, when I talk about making them aware, they have to be aware of that as well. It's more than what we see. It's more than flesh and blood. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but it's higher, principality and all of these different things. Children have to be able to see that. Children have to be able to know that. Children have to be able to see, okay, yes, gun violence is real. But what's the deeper reason for gun violence? Is it that I can, stop it? Is it that my life can be consumed by it? Is it that we need more to life than just that? But if they're not aware, then they only know what they see. So, if I leave with anything or any message, bridge the gap. Bridge the gap between the elders and the young people. Respect your elders. Even when you want to cuss them out. Respect your elders. Honor your elders. There are wisdom in the elders. Because one thing about it, the young people will die, but the old must. And you want to get the wisdom from the old before you can anymore. So that's all I'm going to say.
So Ayana, what kind of picture do you want to paint for us about what it means to be an African American young person in St. Louis and what the needs are for you as you see it?
Well, in St. Louis, in schools in St. Louis as well, you see a lot of separation by race. It's very prominent in schools especially. The cliques that are formed, the friend groups that are formed are usually by race, and I just don't think that's a good environment for us to be in. It's so segregated. Even in the city, one side of the city, you'll see majority is a majority of the population will be white in this one neighborhood in particular. And then you'll go a few streets down and you'll see a predominantly black neighborhood, and you'll see the lack of resources that they have in their neighborhood as well when they're not that far away from that predominantly white neighborhood with those major resources. And I just can't comprehend how we allow that to happen and why we allow people to struggle when the resources are there, but only for a certain group. I have never understood that, actually. And within the schools, that's where it starts. When you're in school and you see people segregated by race or separated by race, it stays with you, because school is the first place that you see something like that. And then you go on to college, and then you go on to life, and you're always in this box of, oh, this is what's available to me, and this is what's meant for me, that's it. Which shouldn't be the case. We should be able to have all of the same resources and opportunities. So I think that's like a really big thing that's prominent across St. Welouis.
So I think, that's a good segue to the next question, because when you start to look at the microcosm, we're part of a bigger system and for us, systems of oppression that are bearing on us, and even for young people who don't even know they exist yet. They feel it and they see it, as you say, that, why is this happening? Where there's a system that says you belong here because of your race, you belong over here because of your sexual orientation, you belong over here because of your gender. Those boxes are defining young people, and I'm glad to see that you're trying to bust out of that. In fact, all of you all are. So my question is, what role do you see policymakers and legislators around issues of safety and issues of public safety, issues of development? Because I just feel like it's arrested development if you can't ever access or you can't ever push the boundaries that are afforded to you. You looking over there, as you said, to that neighborhood, they got a grocery store with fresh vegetables. It's a school over there, the windows aren't broken. Like, what is the psyche that happens when all of this is not going on as it should, but yet we have policymakers and legislators that we elected to do these things? So talk a little bit about that. What would you hope legislators would be doing now in the aftermath of what we just saw, and even knowing that some of this stuff is systemic, it's been going on a while, this started happening last month. Like, what do you want them to do?
Well, what I want us to do before we get to them is study who we vote for. A lot of times when we go to these elections, if you're a Democrat and you're black, you're going to look for all the Democrats that you see, and you're going to vote Democratic. If you're white and you're a Republican and you see all these Republicans, that's what you're going to vote for. But actually take the time to study. Yes, it's going to take a little minute, but it's worth it to know who you are voting for, and to know who the people that you vote for. Because a lot of times people will say that they're one thing, they'll put on a persona during this campaign, or I'll do this for you. But then when they get elected, they're the exact opposite of what you wanted them to be. They're the exact opposite of who they proclaim themselves to be as well. So without knowledge, then you're ignorant. If you're ignorant of who you're voting for, then we can't complain about the consequences that we receive from them being elected in whatever office they are. Also, politics. I really believe politicians just like the name, the title. The title of a politician must look good according to themselves, because honestly, it's about themselves that they look out for. It's about the kind that they're looking out for. It's about their status. It's about their position. It's not equitable at all. It's no longer even about equality either. But if we could get some people in there who will make equitable decisions, for equality is the sameness. There are some things that certain people will have that a certain people will need, giving them both the same thing doesn't do anything, doesn't do any justice. But if you have an equitable politician who see fairness and can provide certain things, then that's who you need to vote for. When you have a politician who truly cares for the people, that's who you need to vote for. Politicians I've seen since October 24th, there was a politician who's a Republican, and we were pushing the red flag law. And if you don't know anything, and I don't mean this in a cocky way, anything that I touch with God's permission, it becomes a success. So with Family Undivided, I'm wearing the shirt now. You can buy the shirt for $10. The hoodies will be coming soon for $40. But but when we did Family Undivided, it was a weekend event. And hundreds of people came out, and there was so much media on it. And we were pushing for the red flag law. The red flag law pushes for anyone that shows any sign of mental illness or self-harm or danger to anyone else will not have any access to weaponry. If we are voting for people and we are putting our safety and trusting our safety in the laws of the land, but the laws of the land isn't securing our safety, nor is it providing protection for the children, and unfortunately for the adults as well, then the laws must change. And it only changes by whom we vote for. Because either way, if we have people who are so self-proclaimed, who are not humble, who are very high within themselves, and they only care about themselves, then we don't care. Then we don't matter. Our voices won't matter. And the politician went on Twitter, and he specifically said that they won't be pushing out any red flag law, that any type of conversation of a red flag law will be pushed away, will not be voted for. But you know what that means? That means our voices was heard. That means that we were seen. Because wasn't nobody talking about no red flag law until we were. So to see that it got all the way over to Congress, to see that it got to the White House, to see that it got up higher, all you have to do is keep pushing out your voice and push out the impact it is of studying who you're voting for. So, yeah.
Maisha?
There's a lot that can be done. I feel like, as they touch based on that, as children, students, as the next generation, we can stand up. Like you said, our voices were heard. We're not gonna stand back. The day that we went back to the school to get our belongings and everything, Dr. Shaheed was speaking to a friend of my mother, and she was like, these students not stopping. Even though most of the things that they want to do we cannot get done, they making it happen. To hear her say that, really, it made me feel good, because it's just like, we feel like we being ignored, but they hearing us. We not sitting down from this. As our head to us, I feel like a lot can be done and put in place. The resources can be distributed for different people to use and to depend on. My mom and a few of her friends actually work with that kind of work, and they do a good job with it. It takes a village to achieve. Progress comes with the work. When you study, it makes progression. Perfect isn't even the picture, because nothing is going to be perfect, but as long as you try and you put your head to it and you get the village that you need to create the picture, it's going to get where you want it to be. God. You gotta find peace with a lot of things before you even try to put it into your hands, because you're not gonna always be the answer to it. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to Tayana, and then we got a few minutes and we're going to close, so we want you to think about what do you want to leave people with, and how do you see past the legislators, because we already said that they have limitations, either self-imposed or whatever. They're not stepping up to do what you think needs to be done. So I'm going to let Ayana answer that, and then talk about what can we do as a community, because that really is where the power lies. So talk about what you want from legislators, and then we'll start to wrap up on what you think the community can do.
Well, I think first we have to look into, like you said, who we're voting for, because that's where it starts. A politician can say, oh, I want this for us, I want this to happen. And then you may give them 2-3 years and see no progress, and then people continue to vote for them, and then there's no progress overall. So I think we should really look into who we're voting for, because nothing will happen if we continue voting for these same people. There's no change that can come from it if you're choosing the same people to have this power and they're not doing anything with it. So I think that's definitely where it starts. And could you please repeat the second question?
The second question is, what do you think the community could be doing differently in order to create real public safety, not dependent on a politician, not dependent on the police, but what can we do?
Definitely better spread of information. There definitely needs to be more awareness. There's a major lack of information regarding things like this, and when people don't know, they can't do anything about it. So I think the community could come together to share and inform the younger people of the community so they know what's going on and can make changes for the future.
Okay. Raekwon?
I remember when, and we keep saying a village, but literally neighborhoods were truly a village. Everyone looked out for every single person on that block. If you knew your neighbor's children, you were watching them when they got on the bus, you were watching them when they got home from school, all of those things. If we can start bringing those things back to place, dropping petty beefs or petty arguments over little things that won't matter 10 years from now, and actually taking care of each other. I remember when SOPS, we didn't have buses for a while in the beginning of this school year, and I remember driving and I looked over to 2 middle schools, and to see all of the parents out there getting their babies, to see how many of them were walking across the street together, whatever that was, it was so beautiful to me, because a lot of times that same energy isn't given if there's a bus and people are getting off from the bus stops. You just walk home. But to be there with your child and then to ask, how was school today? What happened? How was your favorite teacher? Anything new happen? Any updates I need? To see all of those things, bringing those back into place, I feel like we will start seeing a lot of healing in our communities if we start bringing that unity back together in the families and in the neighborhoods.
Myasia. Because you've spoken a lot about it takes a village, all of y'all have. So what does the village need to be doing right now?
I think we put a good start to it, the marches. We can continue those. It doesn't take a lot to get that put in place, especially if you really want to be heard, you're going to show up. You cannot have change if you don't put the change to its place. Nothing comes free in this world, so you got to put in the effort that you expect everyone else to put in, but also you have to if you feel like it's not going to get done, be the start to it. Don't be scared to stand out. Because you may have the same message as the next person may have, they're just scared to speak up about it. And that's okay. It's okay, because it takes a lot, especially when you feel like with all of the COVID and stuff, like you said, we were in the house for a long time and there was a lot of angry people. A lot of people may be like, I'm not finna do that. I don't feel comfortable around those. How you gonna get this change if you're not gonna be willing to be the change for these people to come together? So we can proceed with the marches. We can proceed with the small gatherings. It doesn't take a lot, honestly. Like Raekwon touched based on, the small things adds up. Even when you feel like you're not being paid attention to, everybody's paying attention. Especially when they're like, oh, that little group over there, they talk. It counts. It adds up. Yeah.
So I just am just floored by you all's wisdom at such young ages. I mean, I see some old spirits in there somewhere. And I appreciate the efforts that you all have done at your own schools, the organizing, the bringing people together, raising up these issues for us, not just for this tragic event, but really on any day, what we are supposed to be doing for young people and being attentive and being affirming, as Raekwon said, just the small things, just making sure that young people are not feeling invisible in our society. But I really thank you all for taking time out of your schedules today, and we do want to acknowledge the birthday, the heavenly birthday of the young person that was killed, and you lifting that person up and all of the folks who have gone prematurely to say not another life will go, and my commitment and my recommitment is to make sure that it doesn't happen. So thank you for joining us. For the Organization for Black Struggle and the Youth Council for Positive Development, we are going to continue our work with young people. This particular radio show will be at the Youth Council's YouTube station, and so just go there and look for that, because I would like to see this just go round and around and go to different people who really need to hear you all's voices and to hear it in the form that you said it in, because I think you were sincere. You feeling it, you're living it, and what better people to hear the voices from than you all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other voices, the mic's off.